Wolverine gets locked in a prison cell with a cannibal, and it's every bit as gruesome as you think it is. Okay, so this takes place in Wolverine issue number 165 as part of a story called The Hunted, but nothing else in this story is overly important. What is important here is that this takes place in a prison called the Cage, and because of a device inside the cage that basically neutralizes people's abilities, Wolverine has no healing factor, no enhanced senses, and for reasons that nobody can explain, he doesn't have access to his claws. Doesn't make any sense, right? If you guys aren't familiar with that, check out a video that we did called Fatal Attractions, which explains that whole thing that goes on with his claws. What is important here is that in the prison, there are these guys that basically wake up this dude named Mauvais. And the whole idea behind it is for this guy to off Wolverine. And there's a couple reasons for this. One, because it's Wolverine, right? Everybody's trying to kill him all the time. But the other part of this is that inside the cage are like a series of rival gangs. The two most prominent, or at least the one that really applies the most here, is a group called the Skulls. And they're literally just these crazy guys who follow the ideologies of like the Red Skull and so on and so forth. But the kicker about all this is that Wolverine is currently confined in what's called the Hole, literally a giant hole in the prison. Like that's literally what it is, like solitary confinement if you want to call it that. He is met by a guy named Peepers. Now Peepers is a Morlock, basically a mutant whose abilities make him look physically grotesque, quote unquote, and he can't just live out there in the normal world. But he's kind of like an ally of Wolverine who is also here, which is kind of cool. So is Beast, right? Beast is here as well. He's got an image inducer, which actually gets rid of his beast form and makes him look human. He's not overly important in all of this. What is important here is that when Mauvais was woken up, that he initially goes after this blonde guy, right? One of the people that helped to wake him, and one of the guards draws a gun and he says, here's the rub, right? Here's the deal. In exchange for taking out a guy that we have here, we will let you go free. We will let you out there in the world and do your thing. Now the question has to be asked, why do they care about a cannibal? Because this guy's not just any type of person like that, right? In fact, he actually gains abilities based on how much he eats. So much so that in fact, his resurrection drew the attention of Doctor Strange. So it is kind of a cool thing that this is happening, right? Mystical powers, all that kind of cool stuff. Now, one of the other things that's happening here is that with Wolverine locked in this prison, you of course have like Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. who are basically preparing to orchestrate a prison break. So the thing here that happens is that as Wolverine is stuck down here in this hole, the guard shows up and then just like douses him in what appears to be water. For the most part, he's just kind of monologuing to himself, right? Just kind of having a conversation and talking about how he got himself in this rut and how he brought Beast down with him and all that kind of crazy stuff, right? Just sitting around feeling bad for himself. And so once he comes to and this guy starts taunting him, Wolverine's like, is that a hose, right? Is that like the best you have? And the guy's like, why not ask your friend McCoy? He knows that we can do a whole lot better. Of course, taunting him and basically saying, we've done some work on Beast. And he even goes so far as to say that he's probably pushing up daisies by about now, right? Like, maybe we killed your friend. Maybe we didn't, right? And then when Wolverine starts talking back, this guy says like, watch your mouth. Something you need to know. That's not water. And that's when Wolverine starts to realize he's basically been drugged. Right? Like he's literally without his healing factor succumbing to all this stuff. And so what ends up happening is that the kind of agreement that was made between Peepers and Wolverine, which is one of the reasons why I want to talk about his character for a second, is that Peepers would keep Hank McCoy safe. He would keep Beast safe from anybody out there that wants to take him out, especially considering the fact that Wolverine and Beast, while they were in this prison, made life pretty rough for the Skulls. One of the guys comes in and tries to take Beast out, but ultimately you end up having Peepers who steps in and basically keeps Beast safe, and that's effectively it. Now, at that point, Wolverine wakes up in the prison cell alongside Mauvais. And this is where stuff gets pretty hardcore, right? Because he says, one moment, it's been a while since I've tasted this, right? Tasted people. I'd nearly forgotten how truly refreshing it is. As for who I am, my true name no longer matters, but you may as well call me that which I've been most often referred to in my life, Mauvais, right? Which in French translates to evil. At least I assume it does. I failed French. So he says, in truth, I am but a fellow prisoner condemned for my crimes, an immovable existence by the sorcerer supreme of a past era. But yet another way to look at me is as your executioner, and literally just starts taking it to Wolverine. So much so that like the guards are watching this unfold through like a crack in the wall. Now Mauvais is totally aware of the fact that like this is basically a ruse, right? Like as soon as he takes out Wolverine, the guards are probably gonna try to kill him, right? And so he's not by any means a dumb guy. And he even says that. He's like, they believe I am unaware of the treachery that they have in mind, but it is they who are unaware of the powers I possess and the means by which I obtain them. So the first thing he does, takes a chunk out of Wolverine, right? Reaches out and touches somebody. That's exactly what he does, right? Takes a bite right out of Wolverine's chest. And then what you do is you kind of jump forward by what appears to be a few minutes, and there's just like all these chunks missing out of it, right? Just like all these pieces that have basically been taken. And it's just kind of like, man. And the thing about it is this guy is like just salivating at it all, right? He says, I must say in all my years, I have never come across flesh so invigorating. And believe me, coming from one whose mystical powers are derived from the consumption of this meat, that is a great compliment indeed. And so where Wolverine kind of tries to talk trash a little bit, right? He's like, how about we switch things up and I take a few chunks out of you for a change? The response of Mauvais is like, in time, right? Like maybe we'll get to that, maybe we won't. Right now, I need to consume you so that I can basically get out of here. He says, now hold still. This will only hurt a great deal. He literally reaches into Wolverine's head and just pops that eye right out. And it's just, dude, it's nuts. I mean, it's crazy that this happened, right? It's crazy that Marvel did this, right? And he says, you see, the special properties of your flesh have already partially rejuvenated my powers, enough that I can sense others coming. And since I am still weakened from awakening, I'd rather, how do you say, eat and run. So literally he eats Wolverine's eye and bails, right? Just like immediately takes off. It's kind of crazy. Right? It's one of the craziest things that I've seen. Now, what gets really crazy about this is the way that it ends. And the reason why is because like the warden and like this guy walks in and they basically intend, like because of the fact that Wolverine's quote unquote not necessarily dead, it's just kind of like, okay, like what do we do with this guy? Like, what do we do at this point? Because he was supposed to be offed, right? The ultimate decision they make is to basically just do it themselves. But what ends up happening is like once they've got this thing pointed at Wolverine's face, a claw comes out of nowhere, slashes these two guys from behind, and the one person Wolverine never expected to see is standing there. Sabretooth is part of the team that's been pulled together to get Wolverine out of this prison. With that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end. Let me know what you guys think about this. This is a really crazy story, pretty short, but it's really crazy, and I will catch you all later. Peace.